This piece is entitled Procedure. Anesthetize me with that warm rush of cheek blood. Gloves on, you bare teeth. Your scalpel a spear, sink in and razor it off, all a kneaded flesh. Push that needle in and piston down that hot wax, plump me as you please. I will lie, teeth clenched, as you doctor me deeply. Leave no skin unmoved. And once we're done, love, picture me under the light. Your work, raw and tight. This piece is entitled Arwah. My brother wishes me Salamat Hari Raya through shoots of greenery from underneath his gravel. My salam to him is not a forehead kissing a hand. It is plucks and picks at leaves and roots until all that remains are pebbles, black and white. How have you been? He asks weakly beneath the whistles of du'a slipping through my mother's lips. I have been well, I answer, in tones of cool rose water, splashing and seeping slow into the soil. The petals I toss settle on a stone, recounting stories of a year past, sweetness and sorrow in their scent. I hear no reply, as I have all my life, only the beating sun and the belalang's lonely song. Until next year, I bid him, as tanah liat falls from my knees, ready to go home to a house he wouldn't know. Until next year, he echoes, unspoken, unheard. This piece is entitled Song of an Undesirable Color. I wash my mouth to rid the feel of you, the scent of all the flower buds you smoke, yet still some inch of me lives in your hue. They say that bitter is the hint of truth. I ache to swallow, still I start to choke. I wash my mouth to rid the feel of you. Between my teeth, your deeds are hard to chew. I taste my name and spit therein your joke. Yet still some inch of me lives in your hue. These sweet remains stick onto me like glue, the honey coating every sting you spoke. I wash my mouth to rid the feel of you. I hack away at what your licking grew and dance within the crimson that it stoked, yet still some inch of me lives in your hue. I split my tongue in hopes that you'll slip through. As penance, in your dye my throat is soaked. I wash my mouth to rid the feel of you, yet still some inch of me lives in your hue.
Welcome back to Knots FM, everyone. This is our second episode in our collaboration with Lads. And speaking of Lads, I've got the president here, Aqil, with us, and he just performed 3 lovely pieces for us. So, Aqil, tell us more about the pieces and where they came from, what inspired you, all of that cheesy stuff.
Sure thing, Tristan. Hi guys. Hi guys. I am Aqil Nachan. I am currently the president of Lads and a head poetry editor at Particle, as well as an editor for Fear Not. So right now I'm plugging everything possible.
Good.
So you asked about like where the inspiration for the pieces came from, right? The first piece, it's actually the most recent one, Arwah. That one came because I was sort of reflecting on, well, I have a deceased brother. He passed away before I was born, actually, and the poem is sort of about the Hari Raya tradition of going down to, clean someone's grave up, every Raya. And it's really about how it's about grieving and loving someone,
right,
even though you've never really met them. Like, I know almost nothing about him, really, as a person, and it's just really about exploring those emotions, I think.
Yeah.
Procedure and Song of an Undesirable Color actually sort of came as a 2-piece. I wrote them around the same time, and this was around right before the pandemic, actually. Those came from a really specific place. It was like a really specific relationship that I had, and it was just sort of exploring how I felt in terms of how I was treated. And also, I promise I understand that procedure sounded like a raunchy one. Like, I get it.
It's not a sex poem,
It's
guys.
really not a sex poem. No, I promise it's not a sex poem, because like it's about, specifically, procedure is about changing yourself for the person that you love, and how damaging that can be.
Yep.
And so that's why I used a lot of like plastic surgery metaphors and stuff like that.
Sharp stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And A Song of an Undesirable Color came because I really wanted to try my hand at a villanelle. At that point, I was really like trying out like a bunch of different sort of structured forms of poetry. So a villanelle has like hooks and all that stuff. And I wrote it during a very emotional period. I actually wrote it, I think, during the pandemic.
Right.
I had a conversation with a friend. It opened up my eyes a lot about some things that happened to me. And it's about understanding that trauma doesn't leave.
Yeah.
Like, it's about how certain things, they change you forever. And, you can try your best, but the reality is it doesn't change. It's always going to be there. Things will always trigger you. And the reality of living with certain types of trauma is that you just have to live. You just have to try your best to work around it.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess a follow-up question that I'm going to ask is, I hope this isn't too sensitive, but what was the timeline between, let's say, the fallout of that relationship and when you wrote those two poems?
Ooh, I like that. So procedure happened, I think, pretty much freshly after this relationship ended. The person that I'm talking about and we broke up sometime right before the autumn semester of my first year. And that was written as part of my creative writing class with Dr. Sheena, actually. Our task
we call her Sheena on this podcast because this is a casual podcast.
Okay, dang. All right, so
I'm kidding.
Sheena. It was written in Sheena's class. And it was actually because we were supposed to write in haiku form. And we were specifically given like emotions and imagery that we were supposed to work with. So mine was hurt. Obviously I chose hurt. And that was the sort of imagery that came along with hurt, right? And yeah, it's actually in haiku form, if you notice. That one was written, I would say, immediately. Song of an Undesirable Color happened, I think, about a year after the relationship. And the thing is, it was a pretty like traumatic experience for me. And I actually, I was talking about it with my friend, like I said, and we were just discussing the details. He was like making me realize how messed up most of the things that happened were. Yeah. So that resulted in me, I'm going to be real honest here. I wrote that, we talked from I think 11 until 6. And I wrote it at 6 a.m. after crying my eyes out. And then I wrote it, I finished it, I closed my eyes and I went to bed. And since then, it's had a couple of edits. But yeah, that was where it originated from.
All right. So one was immediately after and one was after a long time of processing.
Yeah, a lot of reflection.
Okay. So would you say that in general, this is where you get... Okay, inspiration isn't a really suitable word, but you know what I mean, right? Is this where you get inspiration from big events that happen? It either, traumatizes you or has a really positive impact on you and you just write that on paper? Is that how you usually come about writing, or do you have I wouldn't say workflow, but a steady pace of I don't know, a poem a week, a poem every 2 weeks? What is your process like?
In terms of where I get inspiration and how writing starts, honestly, I am very, very much the type to just spontaneously get a poem.
Yep.
Writer's block happens to me very often nowadays. I don't write poetry as much as I used to, especially when you're a teenager. You just have a lot of feelings. And now, I mean, I'm not that old, but obviously I'm only 21. But there has been a sort of slower flow of feelings. So it's just... I think I did write a lot of poetry about that specific event, that relationship.
Yep.
And that stems largely from the fact that it was... I'm going to be more honest here. It was actually my first. And the fallout of it was just really, really dramatic for me because a lot of things that happened were really intense. And obviously there's a lot of intense emotions attached to your first relationship. And yeah, I've been writing about that a lot. I think I'm starting to slow down on writing about that. I think I've like processed it pretty thoroughly. So now I'm just like going as it is. Arwah just came from just thinking about the things that have happened. So yeah.
So when you write it down, do you think like it helps you to process those emotions? Like do you feel like better after you write it?
Absolutely. I feel a lot better. I think finding ways to sort of phrase your emotions, for me it helps a lot. I will add though that at some point it actually kind of got a little bit destructive. Yeah. Because I kept like interrogating this one thing that happened over and over,
and you keep revisiting it.
Just like trying to like I guess like just twist out all the juice from this event that happened, and it got pretty destructive. Like it was hard for me to like sort of do anything like in terms of writing without going, oh, what if I talk about this thing? And at some point I had to be like, I need to stop talking about this thing, it's damaging. But
so there was a point in time where you moved on. Okay, well, I'm glad to know that.
Thank you.
So I was just thinking, like, do you think that maybe the reason why you slowed down on writing is because you've been locked up at home for like a year or something, and you aren't going out, you aren't experiencing things?
Yeah, I would say actually that one of the reasons why I've been struggling a lot is because I haven't been able to throw myself into situations.
Yep.
There was one point, I think during the first pandemic, I was doing NaPoWriMo, which is National Poetry Writing Month. It was actually recommended to me by a friend. And it was a very fun experience of just constantly producing poetry. That was pretty, like, I would say eye-opening. I haven't done it since, but I think that was the only time I've ever like produced poetry like day by day and stuff. I don't attach myself a lot to those pieces because obviously those were written as challenges or whatever, and I personally didn't feel like they were very quality for me, so I don't think it really mattered to me in that sense, but I think it was good to just have that experience of just trying every day. So
So just to sum it all up, like, you're not someone who has a consistent schedule with writing. Like, it's not like, oh, every Monday I write a poem or anything.
Dude, I don't have a consistent schedule in anything. Like, every day is taken day by day.
Yeah, so I mean, just as like a message to our viewers, I mean, I mentioned this in our interview with Sheena, but you know, I think every artist struggles with writer's block, especially if you're new. But even if you're experienced, like both of these people, like, you still struggle. Yes, you are very experienced. Like,
no, what are you talking about? I'm like shocked to hear that. I feel like I'm still pretty green to this, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, I think that everyone struggles with writer's block, and I think that's completely normal. Do you have anything to, like, you know, sort of trigger that writing mood in you, like, aside from revisiting traumatic events? Like, is there any kind of thing like I'm gonna go for a walk and I'm gonna listen to some music or something, and that inspires you? Like, what inspires you aside from these traumatic events?
Honestly, that's a really great question. Thanks for bringing up traumatic events. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
I think that when I struggled with writer's block, a lot of time, I think for me personally, it came from constantly trying to write the same thing.
Right.
Like, there's only so many ways you can phrase a certain situation. And again, I think this links back to what I said earlier about, like, it's sort of like a form of mental torture to make yourself go through the same things over and over again. I think that at a certain point you have to recognize that maybe what you're writing about is done. And it's time to switch to other topics. I recently had a really bad bout of writer's block, which wasn't helping because I'm involved with some sort of spoken word stuff, which I think we'll talk about later. And I had a really bad case of it. It only changed because again, I was trying to write about the same traumatic things, and then I shifted my focus and I thought, okay, let's address something different. Let's try to talk about something, be it positive or negative, whatever you want, as long as it's something different. And it definitely like sparked something, and I managed to write a whole thing in a whole night. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, so when you're writing, do you put a persona on, or is this just you 100% like raw Aqil? Oh my god.
phrasing is a thing, Tristan. My god.
Sorry.
I will say that in terms of putting on a persona when I write, I feel personally right now, Aqil right now does not do that very often. I think that definitely before this I used to. But I think for me, this is just for me. I don't think putting on a persona helps me with my writing because to me, it's basically talking about my emotions all the time.
Yeah.
Because I feel so many things.
It comes from within, and trying to pretend that it's someone else doesn't help, does it?
But like preface for anyone listening to this, if you are the type who can only write persona poems or like you explore your emotions that way, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
and honestly,
it's
I totally respect it because I know I can't really do it anymore. So yeah.
Everyone expresses themselves differently.
Absolutely.
But yeah, on that note of expressing yourself, like how did you get to, like the point where you could articulate yourself really well? Because especially with, like really, really heavy topics, it's like, even if you have your friend to go and talk to, like writing it down on paper by yourself is pretty fucking challenging, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just talk a little bit about that, I guess.
Ooh, how I articulate myself. Okay. So I don't know if you guys know this. I wasn't always like this. I mean, even now, I think my poetry is good for now. I'm pretty sure in a couple years I look back at these pieces and go, "Oh my God, how did I ever write that?"
Yeah.
But
that's called growth. Yeah.
It's called, you know what that's called? Growth. But definitely, like I started writing when I was in high school. Again, this is because I had a pretty traumatic event happen to me. Okay, it wasn't super traumatic. I just had like a crush on someone, and it was a whole like discovering yourself era.
Yeah.
And it was actually my friend who first got me into writing poetry. She said, "Hey, I mean, if you want, you can. I write poetry. You should try it too." So my first pieces were, for lack of a better word, god awful. They were so bad. I've seen them a couple times since, and it's sort of like seeing a ghost of yourself. It's just so questionable. But I think over time you sort of learn some tips and tricks of poetry, and you sort of understand how to phrase things well. So, I mean, if you're a person who wants to try out poetry, you can always just keep trying, honestly, and eventually you'll get to a point where it becomes natural. The editing process becomes internal. You're just looking at your sentence and just looking, what's the best word? Before this, I would just write it and then change it, but now I'm like, what's the best word I put here? And then even afterwards, I'll look back, is this still the best word? Can I change this? Should I change this? So yeah.
When do you consider a poem done? It's like, there's this thing that I have. It's like, I try to be a perfectionist when I write music. Like, even though my EP is filled with mistakes, it's like, I'll really get nitty and gritty. I'll be like zooming in on, tiny little mistakes, or in your case, it could be like that one word. Like, do you, like, I'm sure you've experienced this, like you spent like an extended period of time on one piece, right? So how do you tell yourself to stop? It's like, okay, bro, I'm done. I can't keep tinkering with this, like, or else I'll just ruin it. Like, how do you have the discipline to, say stop?
I think in my experiences, right, I only edit like a handful of poems which I feel have a lot of potential.
Yep.
Of those poems, I think like I tell myself to stop when I think there's nothing else that I can change.
Right.
I think it's sort of easier to do with poetry than it is with music, because with music it's always about like exploring new angles and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But with poetry, I think there's only so many ways you can phrase something.
Yep.
And I think that when I wrote like a lot of the poems I did just now, I have edited them pretty frequently since.
Yeah.
At some point I had to go, well, I think this is the best version. And if I keep editing this, I won't have like time to focus on other things that I'm doing in terms of poems. So that's that on that.
Right. Okay, so do you work on multiple poems at the same time, or is it just focusing on one?
Previous Aqil, like teenage Aqil, would have definitely like said, oh, I work on a ton of poems all the time, because he had a lot of feelings. But I would say current Aqil does focus on one poem usually at a time. And that's because I think I just got used to like, before this it was very like unfiltered, just like let's write and then think.
Yeah.
But now it's like I have to focus on a feeling, and then when I write it, I'm like, this is the one that works, and I'm gonna work on this for a bit. So that's where we're at right now. I'm sure it'll change in the future.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you often cringe when you like look back at like past Aqil, right? Of
course.
Do you find it kind of charming sometimes? It's like, man, I was like really inexperienced, and it's like this is so cute, it's like, oh my god, baby emotions are
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like, oh god, Baby Aqil had so many feelings, and they were all like, not all of them were good, but they were all kind of funny. So like, I'm just like, I've seen some of the stuff I used to write, and I look at it, I'm like, it is so cute that I used to think I was so like amazing as a poet. Like this was like the peak of poetry. Now I'm like, oh god, you needed a bit of humility. It's just questionable.
It's fucking garbage.
It's a dumpster fire most of the time, and I'm like, now I used to like do things like I used to curse a lot in poetry because I thought it was cool.
Edgy.
I was so edgy, and it was like about just one person who had a crush on, and it was like the same sort of like, please notice me, I'm so invisible, and I'm like, calm down. That wasn't the end of the world, and it did not produce the best poetry in the world. I mean, obviously, I kind of miss the sense of constantly having inspiration. Yeah. But like, it's like, dude, I cannot believe. I look back, I'm like, this. I have disowned this so hard. Yeah. But yeah.
Personally, like, when it comes to writing music, like, I listen to some songs that I wrote a year ago. I'm like, man, this guy was really different. Like, he was a really different person.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, I guess it's kind of refreshing to know that I'm not the only person who kind of deals with it. Because sometimes I'm like afraid that if I write something, then like 2 years down the road it's like, oh bro, this is shit, bro, like, but I guess it doesn't really matter, because as long as you're happy with it,
it's the process of growth. It's the process. I mean, like, I will say that even looking back at the poems like A Song of an Undesirable Color and Procedure, those are now 2 years old, I think.
Shit, yeah.
Well, one is 1 year old, year old, and the other one's 2 years old. Those are different. My language was different because I was feeling such different emotions. I understand it felt very, it was very visceral language, I feel, looking back.
Yeah.
And now I think I've like settled down to like just sort of a sort of mood, like establishing mood, I think is the thing now. So yeah, that's how I look back to that. And if I look back further, it's like, oh god, like, why were you like that?
Why were you like that? Yeah, same. I mean, like, sometimes I look back, I'm like, bro, what the fuck were you doing?
It's like, were you experimental? What is this?
Yeah. So, I guess I just want to ask a little bit more. I mean, because, like you mentioned, you're president of Lads, and you've got all these other responsibilities, and a lot of your work is very closely tied to what you enjoy, which is writing. So, I guess, in a way, like, how do you get that work-life balance, if you know what I mean? Because something that a lot of people struggle with, it's like, oh, I really enjoy playing music, but then if you make that as your main source of, let's say, income, or, like, where you spend most of your time, it's like you suck all the fun out of it, because it's no longer you expressing yourself, it's you doing it for, to survive, or you have some responsibility attached to it, so you might, censor yourself or alter yourself so that you fit that mood. Like, do you struggle with that?
That's a really cool question. I think definitely, like, in terms of how I am now, and like president of Lads, poetry, staff with article. I think a big distinction for me is that I'm not writing these pieces. Okay. I'm an editor. Right. So editing, I think, is a lot different from writing. It's just about polishing pieces until they're shiny, essentially, right? And I think that that's how I make it okay, in a sense, because like my work isn't defined by my writing, it's how I help others in writing.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it is, I think.
All right. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a stretch, but do you ever feel like you inject your own personality and your own emotions into someone else's poetry when you're editing it? It's like, no, I don't like this because I don't like it. Like, do you find it hard to take an objective view when you're looking at things like this? Right.
Okay, so in terms of editing, right, I still consider myself pretty green in terms of editing. Yeah. I consider myself green in pretty much everything, right? But as an editor, I find that my process isn't to tell someone this works or this doesn't. I have a tendency to just sort of suggest things and go like,
right.
If it were me, I would have done this. Do you think this works for your poem? And if they say no or yes, then we can have that conversation, and we can be like, Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, if you don't want to change it, that's fine.
Okay.
So that's sort of how editing works for me. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, it's very refreshing to know that you're not a dictator, because I've worked with a producer before, and he's like, no, it must be like this, bro. So yeah, it's kind of horrible.
No, I mean, like,
Yeah.
the reality is when you're doing creative work, right? Everyone's piece is someone's baby.
Yeah.
It's personal. Everything you do when you do art, it's all personal, right? So for me to take someone's baby and say,
And just like come in and like,
yeah, this baby is ugly. Cut its hair. Break its nose. No, obviously I'm not gonna do that. I have to look at the baby and go, okay, I think I'll leave the baby metaphor because it's getting weird.
Yeah, it's getting very weird.
Yeah, it's I will take someone's work and say, this is how I would polish it.
Yeah.
This isn't about changing someone's voice, because someone's voice is so personal to them.
It's about refining.
Yeah, it's about making sure that like what goes out is as quality as it can be for
From
me.
you.
Yeah. For me, it's because I am going to be a reader. I am part of the audience. So editing is just looking at things and going, yeah, like,
Okay.
this works. I'm not sure about this, and this me as a reader going like, I would change this if I were you. But if you don't want to change it and there's a reason why, I get it.
Yeah.
I absolutely get it.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, on the note of your responsibilities, again, like, how do you balance your time? I mean, you can say that you're not very good at it. This is a safe space. Okay, like, but yeah, I mean, like, president of Lads, editor, final year student as well, like. And
Yeah, man, I got a linguistics dissertation on my back. It's like, it's so like big things. But honestly, in terms of work-life balance, I don't think I'm super great at it, if I'm being honest. I do have a planner and stuff to sort of keep things in check, but I only update it every so often, and I am very stressed. But I will say that as an English student, I do this because I know I have the free time. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this. English students have like the freest schedules you've ever seen. I literally only have 3 days of class, and of those 2 days, I only have 1 class each day. So like, yeah, that's how I get to come down here and do these things and like write poetry and handle lads, because I still have about enough time to still relax sometimes and just have fun when I can. And it helps that my friends are around, so it's fun to just hang with them, I guess. That's really de-stressing as well.
Nice. Well, how would you, like, suggest dividing, work and life? Because, I mean, right now things are starting to ramp up, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've got exams or not in English, but
we didn't, but this year we do. Definitely, like, it's assignment season. I get it. I have an assignment due in like a week, and I haven't started it. Cut that out later.
We'll leave it in.
Leave it in, yeah, sure. Just leave it in. Just attack me like that. I will say that for me, it's about planning. I have gone to therapy. Yeah, it's getting real serious now, guys. I have gone to therapy for basically ADD.
Right.
And I think a really big help is just planning things out and breaking it down to smaller pieces. My dissertation, when I first decided I was going to take it on, it was so scary.
Yeah.
It's such a big commitment and stuff, right? But then I talked with my lecturer. I have a more solid plan now. We have 5 meetings across, right? So now it's just about sticking to the plan. Even with lads and stuff, it's about breaking it down. It's about making it manageable in a sense.
Right.
When I do things for lads, I want to have the meetings and discuss with my committee members. It's just about delegating and making sure everything's running smooth. So just keep at it, I think. And then when you finally get the time for a break, right? Oh, it gets so sexy. It is so fun.
So it's basically instead of looking at it as looking at it, I can't speak, looking at it as some massive task. You just break it down. It's not like, oh, I gotta write an album, bro. But you just break it down to okay, I gotta write one song and then another song and something like that.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, it's same thing with poetry. Honestly, if I have poetry to write, like I have had recently, it's just okay, we'll try it today, and if it doesn't work, there's still time, so don't panic too hard about it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about lads. So, one of the last events that I went to personally before everything went to shit was a OEPF, and I found it really, really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I could really see that there was a big community between the members and the execs and yada 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 yada. But once the fucking pandemic hit, I'm sure like a lot of clubs were affected. Like even DAG had a massive hit to it, even though like we're mostly digital, like the D in DAG stands for digital, but it's like because lads was so focused on performances and in person, and I mean no doubt like the I guess quote unquote productivity of the club kind of dipped once.
Absolutely.
But just like focusing on that community aspect, like how have you guys kept in touch? Like, is there still like a community between, let's say, the theater people, the poetry people, and if yes, how do you guys keep in touch and how do you share stuff?
All right. So if I'm being honest, right, the pandemic was, I think, the biggest problem that lads has had to face in absolutely years.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of problems to face. I mean, we're theater people. Of course we have problems. I will say that I was head of theater during the year that was completely like no face-to-face, no nothing, right?
Yeah.
And it was actually really, really difficult because we were so excited to come back to campus and everything.
Yeah.
Then the numbers rose.
Yeah.
And we actually had to cancel pretty much all of our major theater events because we kept thinking we could do it. We could not, turns out. I think that the one thing that didn't manage to work was Stuck at Hope, which I understand you were very involved in, Mr. Performer Man.
I don't remember that.
Oh my god, guys, he's such a diva. He forgot He forgot Led's event.
But yeah, carry on. Like,
right. I think that we try our best to keep in touch. I think the theater community sort of stagnated for a bit.
Yeah.
Nothing really happened.
Understandable.
I did meet a few people, I think, but it simply was what it was at the time.
Yeah.
And the writing community, I think, actually got so much more prominent.
Yeah.
Because there was like Storyscapes, which was a collaboration between Writer Society and Lads last year, which was a massive success. And I'm actually involved with Storyscapes this year as well. So it's a lot of fun. And aside from that, there was also like Stuck at Hope, which was our only successful event, I think, last year. And that was all about poetry and stuff. So I think the writing community really got tightly knit because there was just so much more ability to be successful, I think. Hopefully this year we're planning to really bring theater back to campus and make things fun for everyone again. So
but I mean, I think for DAG as well, it's like, to be completely honest with you, like right now the radio team is kind of radio silent, funny fun.
Pines. It's all about pines.
But then if you like contrast that with like the arts, right? Like people are just drawing at home, like they've got their tablets and stuff. It's so cool, and I can imagine like the same thing happening with the writers. It's like a lot of people have a lot of free time now. It's like I don't have to drive back home every day, so I've got like an extra hour. I don't need to walk from F1 to J Block or whatever. So you've got all this extra time, and you've just got time to write. And I mean, it's really nice to hear actually, because a lot of musicians have kind of fallen out of it. Like
definitely.
Some people have really taken advantage of the pandemic to write because they're stuck at home and they've got nothing else to do. But some people, they just can't do it,
Stuck at home, or as some people might call it, stuck at home.
Oh man.
You guys can watch the lives. I think we still have like a recording of it up on the Lads YouTube channel. So that's my plug for the day.
Don't watch it. I fucked up so badly. I was so stressed out with assignments that I just recorded everything in one take, and I was like, okay, fuck this.
You guys heard it here first. Tristan fucked up. Go watch it. I will say that I think the anonymity and the complete like terminal onlineness of the world last year actually helped out like the sort of writing community, and definitely Lads like community of writers in collaboration with Write Sock and stuff. because it was, I think, it lets you make online friends, you know.
Yeah.
I know Storyscapes was like role playing and stuff, so that was, I think, great because it just became like an online space to be collaborative and explore writing, I think. So yeah, I think that's another added element of it. Plus, you don't have to face these people.
Yeah.
So like, it becomes easier to just write and not think about it.
Yeah. I like in DAG, like there are actually quite a lot of members that I still haven't met like in real life, and I think it might stay that way because, you know, they're like overseas or whatever. And I don't know, like sometimes I feel more comfortable sharing, let's say, my music to them or something like that, right? And it's because I don't know them, I don't feel vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I just want to ask, like, how would you advise like writers who are really scared of, you know, opening up and sharing their poetry to like complete strangers? Like, let's say everything comes back to normal and we have like an in-person spoken word gig. It's pretty fucking intimidating, right? Like,
absolutely,
you just fucking like walk on a stage and it's like, what's up guys, here's my trauma, you know. Like
it's trauma dumping onto like a group of people who are like captive audience. Like, we lock the doors. No, just kidding, we don't lock the doors. But yeah, I get what you mean. I think that the experience of spoken word, I haven't actually done like a live spoken word. I haven't even done online yet, but that will be coming soon. I think by the time this airs, that would have been out already, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Sheena plugged it actually. So
yeah, I'm gonna plug it probably in a bit. But I think that my advice to writers who are afraid of like opening up and being vulnerable to people is just like, don't think about it too hard. I mean, obviously it's hard because I understand, like, even when I shared my pieces regarding like, you know, a song of an undesirable color, procedure, and even Arwah, right? These are super personal things, but I think one thing to remember is that that's the crux of poetry. You just have to be vulnerable. And it gets easier over time, I think, to open up about certain things, and especially like sharing it with the random online audience that you have cultivated. Yeah, and the thing is, I think poetry spaces, I think trauma, like not trauma, so to speak, but like vulnerability is very much rewarded.
Yeah.
So there will be people who will, you know, support you in your ventures of telling people about that time you got like dumped really dramatically or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. How much of a safe space would you rate the community that you have around you? Like, how comfortable do you feel with, you know, like sharing your poetry and stuff? Like do you ever feel like, oh, are you gonna judge me, bro? Like,
okay, so here's the thing. I have dabbled both in music and poetry, but I think that the creative spaces around me are just there are people I trust, there are people I don't really trust for like, you know, quite a few reasons, and not all of them are personal. Sometimes it's just like you don't think someone will understand what you went through and stuff. I think if you want to cultivate a sort of creator space essentially around you, it is pick and choosy, but you will be rewarded by the fact that the people around you are people that you trust deeply with a lot of things. I will say that the people I keep around me are like 10 out of 10. So okay, like
we've got Amanda, who's going to be our next guest. I don't know when we're going to be recording that one, but yeah, Aqil just gestured to her.
Yeah, sorry, it's just like I really trust legend, like bro. Other poets with stuff. So yeah, like including Amanda. But yeah,
Amanda is a legendary
writer. Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever have those times where it's like you're in a circle, and let's say there's this one person who's just a fucking dick, you know, and it's like, how do you enforce like the boundaries of your quote unquote safe space or your community? Like, how would you advise? I mean, because you are the president of a club, right? And you do need to have that responsibility. Like, I don't know if you've ever faced it, but
I absolutely have. Of course I have. I mean, it's the sort of like, it's the reality of being creative, and especially like with like uni spaces and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you are bound to work with people that you don't necessarily feel comfortable around. I think that in my experience, if there is someone who I don't particularly trust with certain aspects of my poetry or my plays or stuff, I think I only share very specific things, sort of surface level, and to those I trust, I obviously share more. And the important thing to remember is that, like, sometimes there will be people who feel that they have the right to talk about your work in a way that feels invasive.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people will look at your work and think, oh, I feel like I don't really get this, so I think it's bad. Oh, and that doesn't mean that it's bad, guys. Yeah. You know, it's a whole personal thing. And I think that in those spaces, remember to just take their criticism specifically with a grain of salt, because you know y'all are just not vibing. You know that their work is just not reflecting, their opinions do not reflect anything onto your own piece. It just reflects themselves, really. So yeah, that I think that's the experience that I've had dealing with that.
Okay, all right, cool. I guess just to have a little bit more questions about lads, like, what events do you guys have coming up?
Oh, what events do we have coming up? Okay, I'm honestly not really sure about our timeline in terms of like what's coming up specifically, like when this airs. But there is the spoken word night coming up that I will be involved in, as well as some of our lovely little guests on this little podcast episode series. And it's gonna be a lot of fun. The other night we did a run and we basically heard everyone's poems. It was amazing. And I think even if this airs after like that has happened, you guys can always head down to
go back and watch it.
The YouTube page for Lads.
YouTube page.
The Lads YouTube page. And aside from that, you can also watch a lot of our other content. Like we have, I think the Stuck at Hope recording is still there.
Yep.
You can look at some of our older plays, some of our older spoken word performances. Those are all available online for you, for your perusal. Aside from that, we also have a couple things. Like, I will say that we have auditions coming up for a play. I think the details of that, depending on how or when this airs, right, that will be something to look out for. Or if it's already happened, then you can always come down and watch the play. So yes, that's pretty much everything that Lads is doing for now. We also have our workshops, and there's some other things in the works that I think everyone should keep an eye out for. Essentially, if you're a member of Lads or even a non-member who's just interested, just keep an eye out for us. You know, put notifications on for like our Instagram or whatever. Yeah, that's for Lads. But do you mind me taking this space to talk about some other stuff?
Anything, dude, go ahead.
Absolutely, this is so fun. Particle will also be doing events. As head poetry editor of Particle, I think it's important to shout this out because this is also like poetry stuff. I think we're doing a spoken word very soon. You can check that out. We also have like all sorts of workshops coming up and editing circles if you're a member of the school. If you're a student, sorry, not a member, a student of the School of English, we're doing editing circles soon. So these are all just things to look out for, I think.
Right, cool. Anything else to plug? Your Instagram if you want to, or Lads, or anything?
I actually have one more situation to plug. I'm so sorry. I'm involved with absolutely everything.
Plug everything, bro.
So
Plug
there's
everything.
also Fear Not. We're opening up the Medium page for people's contributions. So if you guys just check out whatever the month's theme is.
Right.
And this month it's capitalism in criticisms of capitalism in fiction.
Yeah.
And we're just looking for things to publish. So essays, articles, really opinion pieces. Just come on down and just submit them if you'd like.
Squid Game and Joy is
yes. Yeah, you saw that one, right? Yeah.
So what your
Oh, you didn't see it?
Then I guess we have the same brain cell.
Oh my god! God. One of our committee members actually posted with Squid Game enjoyers, please apply. So yes, if you enjoy Squid Game, write for us.
Yeah.
And my Instagram is 𝐂𝐴QILY. So it's like Kakili, but like also ILY. Should I plug my Twitter?
If you want to,
it's kind of a question. The Lads. Oh my god, I'm so okay. You can also wait. Can I just record this part? It's like as a big block of like promotional things, just plugging.
Go,
I'm sorry.
This is space to plug.
Sorry. Come on. Okay, so you can go ahead and follow Lads on Instagram. We are UNMC Lads. We also have a Twitter, which is also I think UNMC Lads. We have a Facebook page. We have the aforementioned YouTube. Other things that you can find me on Instagram. That's 𝐿𝐴𝐾𝐼LY, so it's like Aqil but also ILY.
Yeah.
And you can also follow my Twitter at Rina Sawah Padi.
Okay, is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay, well, if you don't have anything else to talk about, I think we're done here.
We've done it.
We've
reached
done it. All right, well, thanks for coming on, Aqil.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, this is love. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a nice day.
Bye bye.